I would like to welcome each of you here to this evening's meeting, February 3rd at 6 p.m. We'll call this meeting to order and begin by acknowledging the land on which we gather as the traditional territory of the Nishnawbe, Ottawa, and Mississauga peoples. Confirmation of the agenda that the Council of the Township of North Huron hereby approves the agenda for February 3rd, 2025 council meeting as presented. May I have a mover? Deputy Reeve, Councillor Whitfield, all in favor? Carried. Disclosure of pecuniary interest in the general nature thereof. Seeing none. Consent agenda. That the Council of the Township of North Huron hereby adopts items 4.1.1 and further that the Council of the Township of North Huron hereby receives consent items 4.1.2 to 4.3.6. May I have a mover? Councillor McBurney, Councillor Van Hitterson, all in favor?
May I say something?
Yeah. Do you like to pull anything, please? Go ahead.
Thank you, Reeve. Item number 4.3.3, it's the Maitland Valley Conservation Authority 2025 draft work plan and budget. If you have any questions or concerns, can you please forward them to me so I can bring them to the next meeting? That's all.
Thank you very much. Would anybody else like to go ahead, Councillor Palmer, please?
Thank you, Reeve. I'm hoping, Carson, you can answer this. This is 4.2.1 in bills. There was a payment of 400,000 made out to I think it's Robos or Roybos Farm Service. It's regarding the dam. Is the account closed by now? Is that the last?
I cannot speak to that off the top of my head, but we can certainly look into that. I'm going to assume that that is likely the final holdback, but we can look into that for sure.
Okay, thank you.
Go ahead, Director, please.
I think if I remember correctly, I'm quickly looking at it. I believe this was reducing the holdback, so there could be still a small amount
Okay.
to be paid out.
Thank you. I still believe it came a bit under budget there, so we're told that. Okay. Did anybody else like to pull anything from the meeting? Go ahead, Councillor Palmer.
Yeah, thank you, Reeve. 4.3.4. It's that letter that came in regarding water and wastewater. There's it states that there's a 50% increase in it. Is there an explanation for that?
Through your worship, in regard to the increase?
Because the rates only went up a certain amount, and just wondering how it affected this one.
Well, so a lot of that change is going to be based on capacity usage not being factored in anymore, right? So based on council's decision to flat rate the billing structure, there's a flat rate charge for operating and capital for both water and sewer, where before there was a flat rate capital charge for water and sewer, as well as a base rate operating charge, and the rest was based on metered consumption charge. So based on as I believe the Director of Public Works discussed when we were discussing this before, you're going to have some users that are paying more than before, and you're going to have some users that are potentially paying less, depending on how heavy of consumption users they were. So that would be the comments I would have on that.
Okay, and I wasn't sure what kind of building it was, the structure, whether it was just a single family unit or not, but okay.
Yes, I was just talking to the lady ahead of time there, and she said she's just the only one in the house there for sure. And so I stated what mine went up is $25 more a month is what mine went up, my water costs. So yeah, each place is going to be different, as we know. Thank you. Was there anything else that had to be pulled? Yes, go ahead.
4.2.2, the appointment of interim director of public works. We need to thank this man. He's jumped to our assistance several times now, and we're just very thankful that he's willing to help us out again.
Oh, thank you very much. Okay. All in favor? Carried. This time, we're going to number 5, public meetings, hearings, and delegations. We have two Mr. Cowans here today to talk about 5.1. And it's a meeting to consider the preliminary report for the Snell Municipal Drain. And Mr. Stephen Brecken will bring you forward. Just push the green little button there.
Check, check. Perfect. Okay, thank you. And I see there's a slide deck put on the screen here, right with that I prepared here last week. So first off, I'd like to thank the council for this opportunity to present this report tonight. This tonight is just a preliminary report. It's not a final report. It's not detailed out in terms of all the the line items that are going to be in the final construction costs and that sort of thing. It's just a very high level report to determine whether or not to move forward, basically. Sorry, could I ask for the next slide to move for me, please? I am. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. Headway Engineering, we were appointed under Section 78 of the Drainage Act, and the date of that appointment was August 12th of 2024, so last summer. And at that same meeting was when we were also appointed to prepare this preliminary report as well. So again, that's the purpose of tonight's meeting, is really just to look over this at a preliminary level. This project is located just north of Auburn. On the right-hand side, we have an outline of the municipality of North Huron shown, and the red dot identifies the approximate location of this project site. The left-hand side has a call-out showing an aerial image, and there's a blue shaded area representing the approximate watershed. And on that there too is a red dot showing the outlet of this drainage system. So that's the approximate location. A little bit of history on this system. The drainage system was originally constructed in 1928. And at that time, it included a little bit of work on an open portion near the lower end, and also the construction of a main drain and a branch drain as well. In 2015, the closed portion, the tile system, was reconstructed. And it was brought up to today's design standards, and a little bit of work was completed on the open portion through here. In terms of public engagement, so following our appointment in August, there was an on-site meeting held on October 8th of 2024. And the purpose of that meeting was for us to get a feel for what the landowners are looking for on this project and really introduced Headway to it. Following this meeting, it's not on the slide deck, but following this meeting, we held a private one-on-one meeting with the requester, the Cowan family here, with Tim. And that was in December, early December of 2024, so not too long ago. And really what its purpose was to kind of review a bit of the preliminary design and talk a little bit about this preliminary report and the costs that are going to be shown in it as well. Stepping forward, in terms of our findings and recommendations so far, this system, like I mentioned already, the upper closed drainage system was reconstructed in 2015, and its design standard is good. It doesn't need to be redone or anything like that. It's very current, and it was brought up to a proper standard. The outlet, looking at the other side of things, so the outlet of the system is a culvert underneath the county road. That culvert is large enough and deep enough. The condition of that pipe is not, it's starting to show some issues with age and that sort of thing. So one of the things I'll be asking to do here moving forward, if we proceed with this final drainage report, is to engage with Huron County just to see if they'd like improvements to the configuration of their road crossing. So it is deep enough, it is big enough, but really the call as to whether to move forward with improvements would depend on whether they consider the condition okay and move forward from there. The open work, the portion that we're talking about in closing on this project, it was minor adjustments were made in 2015 during that last report. And prior to that, there really hasn't been very much maintenance at all. And Department of Fisheries and Oceans has noted that this system is not rated. Now, just today, this is out of date now on the slide deck, but just today, Fisheries and Oceans did get back to us with their approval for this enclosure. Their approval was in the form of a letter of advice. So that is taken care of, and that's very, very current as well. And I'm going to just move forward to what we're recommending, but what we're proposing to do here is the enclosure of about 134 meters of open drainage system with some area grading as well. Area grading roughly at 8% slopes, which is very, very workable for agricultural lands and really improves the workability of the overall area, not just the enclosure portion. This slide shows an approximate watershed. Again, at this preliminary report level, we really haven't been able to put boots on the ground to do a proper survey yet, but based on provincially available data, this is the watershed area shown here. The green area on the left-hand side shows the location of this proposed enclosure, and it just outletting upstream of the Huron County road crossing. The estimated costs, and very preliminary still, but the estimated costs come in just under $150,000. That estimate is made up of those categories shown above. Allowances for damages during construction, then there's the actual construction items themselves, and engineering, environmental permitting, and that sort of thing. The bottom line estimate comes to about $148,000. The pie chart on the left-hand side shows a bit of a breakdown, visual breakdown as to how that would look. Again, this is very preliminary because we still need to do the survey. We still need to work out the proper grades and that sort of thing as to what the design would actually be. But as a very good ballpark budget, $150,000 is approximately is a very good preliminary number at this stage. Now, with that actually completes the presentation of the report. It is a fairly brief report. This picture on the right-hand side of the slide, it's taken from a drone photo just upstream of the location where this enclosure would take place. And so below the drone is the newly constructed 2015 pipe system, and we're looking downstream toward that road, and eventually this system outlets in the Maitland River just across the road. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Berger. At this time, this opportunity for comments by anybody in the audience? Mr. Collins, are you like to share anything or is? Nope. Okay. Okay, that's fine. 5.1.3, we'll have opportunity questions or comments from council members. Go ahead, Councillor Palmer.
Yeah, thanks, Reeve. Just wondering how many other landowners would be involved in this watershed?
Yeah, so through the mayor, or through the Reeve, I'm sorry. The construction cost for this system for an enclosure would be for the person requesting the enclosure. Now, if there is a road crossing here too, that road crossing work would be for the county. The way these things are typically assessed out is if there's maintenance costs that have occurred, like what you're saving when you do an enclosure is the potential for a couple maintenance things, for a couple maintenance routine work for open ditch systems in the future. In this case, this system has had very, very, very little maintenance in the past, and so the baseline costs for maintenance are very, very negligible. So, yeah.
Pretty straightforward. I know exactly where this is, going up Donnybrook Road, and it'll be interesting to see the final outcome of this for sure. That's great. So we'll go to 5.1.4, decision of council and instruction to engineer that the Council of Township of North Huron hereby receives the preliminary report dated January 15th, 2025 from Headway Engineering for the Snell Municipal Drain. And further, that council directs Headway Engineering to proceed with the preparation of the final engineering report for the Snell Municipal Drain. May I have a mover? Deputy Reeve, Councillor Palmer, all in favor? Carried. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
And thank you, Collins, for coming. Appreciate that. At this time, we'll move on to number 6.1, Clerk's Department. 6.1.1 CL 2025-04 alternative voting methods for the 2026 election. Are there any questions for CAO Lamb at this time? Oh, it's pretty straightforward. It's just continuing on where CAO Lamb did other years, and I think most of the counties on this same thing too. So may I have a mover? Councillor Whitfield, Councillor Wright, all in favor? Carried. 6.2.1, Finance 2025-04, multiple residential water and sewer billing rates. Are there any questions for our CAO at this time? Go ahead, Councillor Wright, please.
Yes, thanks for your, so just as a clarification, this would apply only to multi-unit residential buildings that are assessed that way via MPAC, correct? And wouldn't apply to just a house that had a granny suite in it or something like that?
Through your worship, to answer Council Wright's question, in speaking with Director Towns, he said that would be the intention for implementation, as that's the easiest way to track the status of the properties. So it would be based on any, it would be based on impact data for any property classified as multi-residential.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Reeve. Yeah, I guess we need to consider what kind of housing types we really have and how it's how this would affect each of them. You know, we've got the apartment building, so it's a purposed building for units. And then again, we did save money by its servicing. Then you've got sort of the fourplexes, sixplexes, townhouses, all those, but they're basically individual units. They're like a house, as far as I'm concerned. And then you've got houses, the old houses especially I can think of, that they've made they're renting out some of the bedrooms. But it's still one water in, one water out. And so we basically have to treat them as a single family unit, I think, even though they'll use more water. So we'll lose in that case, but we have no way of, unless you put a meter on, you have no way of knowing.
Okay, Deputy Reeve, please.
Thank you. Through you, Reeve. I'm not sure who's can answer this, but I was curious that some of the new construction in my ward have been fourplexes, quite a few of them. And if I'm not mistaken, they were required to put in a meter. I'm just wondering if the construction of had to put in a meter within 1 or 2 years of the building being built, and we're switching to flat rates, whether they'll be reimbursed for their meter cost of purchasing that meter. They didn't require it.
Yeah, so through your worship, yeah, you may run into scenarios like that. I guess it would be a council decision of whether you want to reimburse for those metered charges. Ultimately, for any of those properties, whether they went through site plan control, yeah, they would have been told that they would have required meters at the time, because that was the water and wastewater system the township was operating. Council was operating under a metered water system. However, the council made that change in September, so those requests could potentially come forward. In terms of obligations of whether you're required to reimburse, that's something I don't necessarily know off the top of my head, but something you could staff could definitely look into for sure.
The bulk of Blythe were non-metered though, right? They're always flat rate.
Yes, the majority of Blythe was flat rate.
Thank you. Okay, so any other questions? Go ahead, Councillor Palmer, please. I think everybody's made their remarks, so go ahead.
I think option 3, and it's slightly altered. So it would implement one multi-rate of, and I'm just going to say 85%, because I don't believe in giving everything away. If someone else wants to consider something less, that I'd like to hear it. And it's only for a purpose-built apartment complex. just because it's cheaper to, for us to get service in there. But for all other dwellings, whether they're fourplexes, sticks, or townhouses, or detached or semi-detached, I consider them as still a full family residence. And it's one pipe in, one pipe out for each of those individual cases.
Okay. So you put on there at 85%, and number 3,
Only because I'm trying to consider a little savings for them, but I'm not 100% sure about that figure.
So, I guess my question to you, Counselor Palmer, would be, purpose-built apartment complex is kind of a subjective term.
No, it's an apartment building.
Right, so I have to look at impact classifications, but I don't think we specifically get data saying this is classified as an apartment building.
What would it be classed as then?
It would come back as multi-residential, just like some of your other properties.
But we all know there's a difference. There's still one pipe in, one pipe out almost at an apartment building, as it is in every other structure. So it has to be treated somewhat differently. Don't you think?
Well, I just, without knowing which of these 18 particular properties that's going to apply to, I don't want to leave it to something that's subjective and it turns out we end up missing something or not accounting for something, I guess is my concern. So yeah, I almost lean towards if you're doing something like that, you define it as multi-residential over a certain number of units. Might be your easier classification.
Okay, well, we've got 4. I don't know how you class a townhouse structure. Maybe over 10 or something like that. I don't know. I'm asking. Please add to it. Add to the conversation.
go, yeah. Okay, Deputy Reeve, please, then I'll go to Councillor Wright, please.
Through you, Reeve, some clarification on the description of the water rates and sewer rates are not captured in anything to do with the connection to a building, whether it needs more or less connection to a building. Those are covered under the connection costs, which are separate from the water billing. The water billing and the reserve capital have that costing goes towards the operation and the future maintenance of the system. So whether it's an apartment building with only one connection to it being cheaper to put into than one house, on the contrary to that, one apartment building is assessed at $6,000 for a connection fee for the one in town here at 74 units. If you were to hook up 74 houses, that would have been $146,000 and not $6,000. So those costs don't come into the billing portion of it because they're captured in a totally separate document. So to say that one building is a large building is cheaper to service than a single home, that may be the case, but it has no bearing on the costing of what the service costs. Thank you.
Can I just, if I may, Your Worship, so I just did a quick pull up of MPAC's actual classifications of multi-residential properties. And so they're defining features that they contain 7 or more self-contained residential units. So really, I guess when the report says this would apply to anything 2 units and above, really it would be anything that applies to 7 units and above based on MPAC's current classification.
Okay, go ahead, Councillor Wright, please.
Yes, thanks for the clarification there. You know, I guess my thought is the connection fee is meant to reimburse the town for the original construction, right? And it's the set aside to capital reserves, which is the replacement cost, right? So my feeling is that, if you've got an apartment building, it's got one connection to water and sewer. So it's all that line, you never have to replace in 50 or 75 years, right? The water and sewer line that would potentially run between a whole bunch of houses, right? The cost for the water treatment plant and the sewage plant are the same, right? But you would never, there's a, you know, a lot of line you would never have to replace. So to me, it does make sense that large residential units would have some kind of a discount because you don't have to worry about that water line or sewer line replacement in the future. So.
Go ahead, Councillor Palmer.
Originally, my thought was like no change in charge. Charge is the same across the board, just because we do need the funds for reserves. But then reading the report, I would never go as low as what say some of the other municipalities are doing. I mentioned 85 in this particular case, just sort of reaching out with a figure that still gives us a substantial amount of funding. And it does show that our costs are going to be a little bit less. Now, if there's, disagreement across the board about it, I'm fine with that as well.
Yep.
I just had to throw a figure out to get conversation going.
Yep. Appreciate that very much, Councillor Palmer. Go ahead, Deputy Reeve, please.
Yeah, thank you. Through you. I just need an explanation on a single person in a single home being charged out as residential rate, or having 4 people in a 2-bedroom apartment getting a reduction on their water bill. Please give me some information that I can explain that to them as to why one group of people would get a reduction and they would not.
Go ahead, Councillor Wright, please.
Yeah, so this goes back though to the decision that council made to do away with metered rates, right? If we're worried about that kind of situation, right, where 4 people in an apartment are paying less than 1 person in a house, then we should have meters. Right? But we made the decision not to have meters. So I mean, unfortunately, we can't do anything about that. Right? And that's just the way I feel about it. That can always be revisited. We always kind of set it aside as something we may want to come back and relook at, right? But unfortunately that it is what it is, I think.
Yeah, so just the motion here, and again, Councillor Palmer, if this isn't what you're looking for, let me know, but it'd be something along the lines of that the Council of the Township of North Huron hereby receives the report from the Director of Finance Treasurer dated February 3rd, 2025 regarding multi-residential water and sewer rates. And further, that Council directs the Director of Finance Treasurer to implement option number 3, 1 multi-residential rate with no metered consumption charge, as identified in staff report FIN 2025-04 to take effect for the January 2025 water and sewer billing. And further, that council directs for the multi-residential rate to be 85% of the overall flat rate for the operating charge and the capital reserve charge for multi-residential rates of 7 units and above. And further, that council directs for the Director of Legislative Services / clerk to prepare an amendment to the fees and charges bylaw for the February 18th, 2025 regular meeting to add the multi-residential water and sewer rates.
May-
Go ahead.
Thank you. I have a question about the, is it just talking about the water rates, or is this influencing the water and sewer reserves, what's on the water bill as well? And actually, I would like to see a follow-up report about the rates for vacant housing too, because if your house is for sale and it's standing there empty, is there some kind of an incentive, or that you don't have to pay the water rates, just the water and sewer reserves? Or I'm not sure how it'll work. I think we have a little bit, not enough information to make a good decision about this today.
Go ahead, Councillor Palmer.
Thank you, Reeve. Now you mentioned 85% of the flat rate and 85% of the capital. I don't know if we should change anything regarding capital, because that's required. If anything, a break should be given only to the flat rate, the water portion, consumption portion, without a meter.
So capturing what both yourself, Councillor Palmer, and what Councillor Van Hittersum has requested. The motion could be something along the lines of that the Council of the Township of North Huron hereby receives the report from the Director of Finance Treasurer dated February 3rd, 2025 regarding multi-residential water and sewer rates. And further, that council directs the Director of Finance Treasurer to implement option number 3, one multi-residential rate with no metered consumption charge as identified in staff report FIN 2025-04 to take effect for the January 2025 water and sewer billing. And further, that council directs for the multi-residential rate to be 85% of the overall flat rate for the operating charge and 100% of the overall flat rate for the capital reserve charge for multi-residential properties of 7 units and above. And further, that council directs the Director of Legislative Services / clerk to prepare an amendment to the fees and charges bylaw for the February 18th, 2025 regular meeting to add the multi-residential water and sewer rates. And further, that council directs staff to prepare a follow-up report regarding the approach to be used for vacant properties.
Counselor. Yep. Okay, go ahead. Question for you,
Yeah.
from you?
Yeah, maybe the clerk might know this. There's been quite a change in the way they're dealing with fourplexes nowadays. Like you can sever a fourplex and sell it as a single unit. So then does that then put 3 units on one flat rate and a single resident on the 1 unit? How,
Or flat rates.
but you can sever the property.
Would it matter? Still.
I think Clerk Lamb here has an answer for that.
2 units.
Like, are you talking about a property,
A fourplex, you can
like
sever a
subject-
fourplex
like
and sell
subject-
it.
so it'd be subject to power lock control. You couldn't necessarily like sever the property itself, but you could go through power lock control. I guess it would depend on whether there are individual lines running to each of the conveyable properties, which generally there would need to be in order to create 2 individual conveyable lots.
Any other comments? So does that suit you, Counselor Palmer, what our CEO just read out? Okay, Yeah.
That addition is what you're looking for as well.
Sure, but I would like to see more than just the water portion for the vacant rates. I think it needs to be a little bit more comprehensive to encompass the apartments and what is considered 1 connection and what is considered 2 or 4 or 7, because there's so much difference right now.
So
I
I've
think
yeah,
a broader report would help us.
I've added to prepare a follow-up report regarding the approach to be used for vacant properties for both water and sewer.
But not just for vacant properties, for, well, actually all properties. I think we don't have enough information right now about connections and about how many properties will be serviced by 1 connection or by 4 connections, or it's very muddled for me right now. I find it really hard to make a decision about this because of the connections per unit.
go ahead, Counselor Wright, please.
Yeah, so just to throw the options out there, right? So I know there's a motion on the table, but it hasn't been seconded yet. But it sounds like Councillor Van Henderson, it sounds like you'd rather go with option 1, the status quo, with a follow-up report, and then this could be revisited by council at a later date once we have that follow-up report, right? So just putting that thought out there.
Yeah, and I guess if council wanted to would proceed with status quo, that's quite fine. The biggest thing is staff require direction of how to apply this to the January billing, which will be going out by our finance department in February. So we do require some sort of direction on how you want to proceed with that January billing because this flat rate system has taken effect as of January 1st. But Director Wilson.
Go ahead, Director Wilson, please.
Just to add to this is the council may want to consider relooking at your sewer use bylaw. And if for fourplexes, duplexes, sixplexes, in the future, you may want to have it incorporated into there where each unit has their own sewer and water connection. So if it's a fourplex, there's a separate water service for each of those 4 units. That's what we incorporated in at when I was working in Goderich, that each one had them. And then that way everybody had their own water service. So if somebody moved out or there was an issue there, you could turn the curb stop. And also if there was an issue with their sewer, everybody had their own sewer connection so that it wasn't a fourplex where it all wide off. And it might simplify what you're trying to accomplish here on defining multi-residential.
Yeah, at this point, yeah, whatever direction council wants to provide, staff can certainly proceed with. So you have the motion from Councillor Palmer. It doesn't have a seconder yet. I can read it back if that's of benefit. But the motion would be that the Council of the Township of North Huron hereby receives the report from the Director of Finance Treasurer dated February 3rd, 2025 regarding multi-residential water and sewer rates. And further, that council directs the Director of Finance Treasurer to implement option number 3, one multi-residential rate with no metered consumption charge as identified in staff report FIN 2025-04 to take effect for the January 2025 water and sewer billing. And further, the council directs for the multi-residential rate to be 85% of the overall flat rate for the operating charge and 100% of the overall flat rate for the capital reserve charge for multi-residential properties of 7 units and above. And further, that council directs for the Director of Legislative Services / clerk to prepare an amendment to the fees and charges bylaw for the February 18th, 2025 regular meeting to add the multi-residential water and sewer rates. And further, that council directs staff to prepare a follow-up report regarding the approach to be used for vacant properties for both water and sewer.
Okay. So Councillor Palmer put this on the floor. Would anybody like to second it? Councillor Whitfield? Okay, we have it on the floor. Any other questions before we go to vote? Seeing none? All in favor? Okay, defeated. Okay, so do we have?
I still require some direction.
Yep, we just wait. Okay, so does somebody, go ahead, Deputy Reeve, please.
Thank you, through you, Reeve. I'd like to put a motion forward for option 1 with just some follow-up clarification for councillors' information as to clearing up the wording on what is, 7 units above or fourplexes, just some clarity that we can be able to give that information out to our constituents, but I think everyone should be treated the same.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I'll just wait, let the CAO read this out, please.
Yeah, so maybe if, just Deputy Falconer, so what exactly are you looking for in a follow-up report?
Just a clear language, clear information to councilors as to what this entails to, what this is going to look like. Wording, we've got different wordings for, we just learned tonight that it was 7 units and above is the unpack one, where we had 4 in the report. I just like some clarification as to what actual information is tied to the document.
Right, so I guess, so council wants to consider this at a later time once you have full information, is that correct? Because with status quo, you're basically making a decision to keep that approach in place. So if you wanted to reconsider that, you would have to go through the motion to reconsider.
No, I don't want to reconsider the motion. I just wish you to have a clarification for council as to what the parameters are, whether it's a 4 unit, 7 unit, 8, where the defining lines are for
how many, how many units the flat rate would apply to. Okay, gotcha.
Let's get a moment and then let them read it back.
Like, yeah, just for clarification, just what is an R1 and what is R2, what is low density, what does that mean? What is our medium density, R2 medium density? Like, what does that pertain to as far as the building goes? It doesn't,
So right now, the motion would be that the Council of the Township of North Huron hereby receives the report from the Director of Finance Treasurer dated February 3rd, 2025 regarding multi-residential water and sewer rates. And further, that council directs the Director of Finance Treasurer to implement option number 1, status quo, as identified in staff report FIN 2025-04 to take effect for the January 2025 water and sewer billing. And further, that council directs staff to prepare a follow-up report providing further clarity on the flat rate charge that would be applied for each type of residential building.
You're fine with that, Okay, we have Deputy Reeve. Would somebody like to second it? Councillor Wright? All in favor? Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Thank you, Reeve. So you're basically wanting 100% charge on everything. Any residential unit, like that's basically what you're calling for. It doesn't matter if it's part of the 73 unit or it's a house. Because that's, and then asking for a report on, well, can you define this, define that? It seems strange to get definitions after we make a motion to pass something.
Go ahead.
yeah, I can, sorry, through you, Reeve, yeah, I can see the confusion, but all I was doing, wanting the clarification was that in the report, it stated a different number than what MPAC had. That's all. Our report had a different number. So which is the number we're going to use? That's all I wanted to know, is whether we're going to go by MPAC or whether we're going to go by our number. That's all the clarification that I was looking for.
Okay, Reeve.
Go ahead.
So we're voting on the same charge for every residential unit, no matter what it is, whether, other than, it has to be one. The big definition of one pipe in, one pipe out, because we can't charge more for, say, a house with a bunch of bedrooms rented, because there's no way of policing that one. Yeah, but you can't do anything about a situation where there's only one pipe in, one pipe out. Doesn't matter how many units there are, it becomes an issue. Now, the apartment building complex, anything over 7, like that one, I agree, we needed that definition was helpful. And are we charging all 73 units the same as what we would charge, like for your house, for instance?
A liter flush in my house is a liter flush in an apartment. So 74.
I'm just wanting clarification, that's all.
But I don't see charging one person a different rate for 1 liter of water and sewage than another person.
Fair enough. Okay, okay.
Okay.
It's not because the size of the budget going in, it's the usage in the system. Usage in the system.
Oh, you should mute Mike.
Okay. Okay, at this time, we'll go to a vote now for, did you want to read that again? Are you happy with that?
So the motion council has on the floor is that the Council of the Township of North Huron hereby receives the report from the Director of Finance Treasurer dated February 3rd, 2025 regarding multi-residential water and sewer rates. And further, that council directs the Director of Finance Treasurer to implement option number 1, status quo, as identified in staff report FIN 2025-04 for the January 2025 water and sewer billing. And further, that council directs staff to prepare a follow-up report providing further clarity on the flat rate charge that will be applied for each type of residential building. So that's your motion. Councilor or Deputy Falconer is your mover, Councilor Wright your seconder. And just for clarity, so option 1, as noted in the report, is it says with this option, there would be no introduction of multi-residential water and sewer rates. This option would result in multi-residential properties being charged 100% of their residential water and sewer rates on a per unit basis.
Okay, we have a mover, seconder. Bring this to a vote. All in favor? Carried. Okay, 6.3.1. CC 2025-02 Startup Service Agreement with the County of Huron Blythe Daycare Expansion. Are there any questions for Director Stice, or would she like to give a little bit of an update with that? Go ahead, Director Stice, please.
Through you, Reeve Heffer, to council. This is a follow-up. So we were notified that we were successful in the grant application to the county. And this report before you is to seek signatures for outlining that agreement with the county. There was one amendment to that I have already connected to the county on, and that would be the date. As per Councillor Wright's notice that under 2 D, that would give us a chance, sorry, a 3B, that it would give us a chance to fill the new center until March 31st, 2027, not 2026 as originally in the document. And I think that that's a good move. It just gives us an extra year, given that there might be delays or hiccups in the process, that it just gives us a little bit more flexibility.
Good, thank you for that update. Now, are there any other questions at this time for Director Stice with this? Go ahead, Councillor Wright, please.
Yeah, thanks for you, Reeve. I just wonder, as a kind of a follow-up question, what is the purpose of these, date ties to these grants? Like, I guess, why does the county do it? Because for municipality, what I see is it somehow creates risk, right? Like we're trying to do a good thing. We're trying to build a daycare. And then for some reason, if there's a unforeseen delay because there's tariffs put in or whatever, right? That somehow we could be on the hook for the bill and not get the grant. But yet, so I don't know if you can answer that or clerk can, but what is the purpose of these, of tying a specific date to these? I mean, I know they don't want the projects to go on indefinitely, but it does seem to impart risk to the lower tier municipality trying to execute the work.
One of you like to comment on that, please?
Sure, I'm happy to comment through you, Reeve Heffer, to Councillor Wright. My understanding in my conversations with the county is just to give some framework so that there are target dates for completion. I think we're now entering into an uncharted territory, probably similar to the pandemic, right? Where all of a sudden there were some challenges with supply, and we will work through this. But I can say that all of my conversations with the county, they have been flexible and workable and understand kind of what this relationship will be. And so unless the interim CAO Lamb, you have any other?
Well, in regard to the March date aligns with the province's fiscal year. So the money flows from the province to the county to us. So just like how we have to do some reporting to the county also will have to do some reporting to the province. So generally anywhere where you see that March date, that aligns with the provincial fiscal year.
So are there any other questions for Director Stice at this time? Seeing none, may I have a mover? Councillor Van Hitterson, please. Councillor Whitfield. Taking a vote, all in favor. Carried. 6.4.1, Public Works 2025-05 Blythe Sewage Treatment Plant Filters. The CAO would like to speak to this, please.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. So in your package, you would have saw 2 motions. The first motion is a draft motion to reconsider. So in order for council to have a discussion on this item tonight, you would need to first pass a motion to reconsider. We've done this a number of times before, but just as a reminder, so a motion to reconsider, it'll need to be a recorded vote. Because the consideration is happening within 1 year of the original decision, 2/3 majority is required, so 5 out of 7 councillors are required to then reconsider. no debate on the reconsideration, but then you can have your discussion when you're actually having the reconsideration. And of course, if it's decided in the affirmative to reconsider, then your next discussion item would be to do the actual reconsideration. So the motion in front of council that's recommended by staff is that the Council of the Township of North Huron hereby agrees to reconsider its previous decision regarding the Blythe Sewage Treatment Plant temporary sand filters that was decided by motion 0825 at the January 13th, 2025 regular meeting in light of an alternative and more cost-effective option being identified.
May-
You need to move it first.
Hoover, Deputy Reeve, Councillor Palmer. Thank you. Okay, go ahead, CO Lamb, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. So now I will call the recorded vote. So Deputy Reeve Falconer,
Yes.
Councillor McBurney, Councillor Palmer, Councillor Van Hitterson,
Yes.
Councillor Whitfield,
Yes.
Councillor Wright,
Yes.
and Reeve Heffer.
Yes.
So that motion carries 7-0.
Now we'll go on to motion number 2. With that, are there any questions for Director Wilson at this time? Or maybe would you like to just speak a little? Go ahead, Councillor Palmer, please.
I was glad to see this. I'm just wondering where it came from. Where the ideas came from, and was there any conversation with Mr. Bromley? I don't know if you saw his letter.
Through you, Reeve. Yes, I never really talked to Mr. Bromley in person, but I did understand from the letter and other discussions with some other staff and Veolia that the Brussels plant is basically a similar, and they went through a similar process over there with their filtration system, having it rebuilt and fabricated. So it's worked out for them, and they suggested that this might be something for North Huron to consider. And after we had a meeting there with BM Ross and Maitland Welding, they said that it'd be something that they certainly could take on. And once we had to get in and get the old sand and media fact out of it for them to come in and take a thorough inspection of it. And then I spoke with Maitland Welding last week, and they said not a problem. And they, at that time, they recommended doing both sides at the same time to avoid possible failure in the future of the other side that wouldn't be done, and provided us with some costing. So that's how we got to this report.
Thank you. Are there any other questions? Go ahead, Councillor Wright, please.
Yes, thanks, Hugh. So, is there any idea of how long of a time frame of a fix this is? I gather it's, good for a few years and not any more than that. Is that roughly accurate?
To you, Reeve, that would be accurate, Councillor Wright, that it's not a long term, but it's a temporary fix. And at the same time, when we were on site meeting and we had the discussion with BM Ross to continue on and expedite the design work and get whatever costing they need so that they can get prepared to go to tender. And hopefully that will be in the spring that they get there, or early summer, and then get ready for tender and for construction in 2026.
And as a follow-up, we do have an order from the Ministry of Environment, right? So has there been conversation with them that this is an acceptable alternative in lieu of what they've recommended or asked for in their order?
To you, Reeve? Yes, the ministry is aware of this other option that we're going to move forward with, and they just want to see some progress and some action done. And we will be keeping them in up to date on what's going on. We do monthly reports to them, so we want to make sure that they stay in the loop on what's happening also.
Thank you.
Deputy Reeve, please.
Thank you. Through your Reeve to Chip, the Brussels unit that is roughly identical to the one that's in the Blythe treatment plant that was repaired over there. If I'm to understand, that was repaired several years ago in Brussels. Is that not correct?
To you, Reeve, I'm not exactly sure, Deputy Reeve, when it was done, but it seemed to work fine for them, and that's why we got the letter over and basically the recommendation to look into doing it the same here.
My question is, are they still using that unit to date, or have they gone through and had to replace that repair?
I'm sorry, I can't answer that. I could certainly inquire into it and see if it's still operational. But I think the goal here is to just get this repaired so that we can move forward with switching from chlorine to a UV treatment plant here.
And I believe Brussels has moved to a UV plant as well.
So if they have, then they don't use this anymore, what the repair that was done.
Okay, any other questions for Director Chip? Seeing none? Right here. May I have a mover? Counselor Palmer, Counselor McBurney, all in favor? Carried. 6.4.2, Public Works 2025-6 Hutton Heights hedgerow removal. Are there any questions for Director Wilson with this? Pretty well straightforward. We're talking about it last fall, but go ahead, Deputy Reeve, please.
Through you, Reeve. This last portion of taking out the hedgerow, is it the last qualification that's required for the project to go ahead? Or what I'm getting at is if we don't do it, is the project not going forward? And if we do, is it still going, or we haven't got an update from that project for quite some time, and they're requiring us to do an expense. I just want to know that we're going to get something back for our expense.
Through you, Reeve, I believe this was part of the sale agreement that had to be done, as well as there is going to be at a certain time some plantings that have to go back in place, but this has to be done, and the timing on it because of I believe it's bat habitat in there also, so that it's very time sensitive that way, but it was part of the sale agreement that has to be done within a time frame.
And just through your worship, to add to what Director Wilson said, so this isn't the only thing holding it up. So in August, council and then county council gave draft plan approval for the draft plan of subdivision for that property. So the next step is to satisfy those conditions. So there's 45 conditions they have to satisfy as part of that draft plan approval. They have 3 years to complete those conditions. Is the process. So noted in those conditions, I believe is 20 and 21 were the conditions related to the hedgerow removal and the tree replanting. But the way condition 21 was set up was that we don't have to do the tree replanting for them to get final approval of their plan of subdivision, because you wouldn't want to plant those trees and then have the development damage those trees, right? So but yeah, they're still working through the process of clearing their conditions now that they got their draft plan approval in August.
Mover, please. Counselor Van Hitterson, seconder. Counselor Whitfield. Any other questions? All in favor? Carried. Correspondence requiring action or direction. 7.1 G2G Rail Trail Incorporated letter request for letter of support for grant funding. Are there any, you would like to ask any question about this? It's pretty well straightforward. We've been doing this all along. May I have a mover? Counselor McBurney, Deputy Reeve. All in favor? Carried. Okay, we're moving to 8.1. Reeves activity report is invited with Blythe counselors down to the Blythe firemen back there a little while ago, Monday or so ago. And we got invited down to, they had the first time all the firemen were able to get together since 2010. Is very impressive under our new fire chief. He just gave a high picture of what's going to be going on, and it was good to see all the firemen there, and naturally the Howick firemen, they covered the Wingham area for that hour and a half. But it's really good to see the response from the firemen, and just thank them for the work that they are doing, and just seeing them all pull together like that is really great seeing that. We met the CEO, interim CEO, Carson Lamb, and myself, we met with Lisa Thompson, and she gave us the check of 55,000 for the Salk Senior Activity Living Center. And we just sort of talked about online with the grants and the priorities, just so she knows where we're sort of sitting with things and whatnot. It's always nice to have, she said, to have that in her back pocket, she said. So that was good. And Roma, I know there's going to be two people talking about that. I just want to express the one part that really came strong through was Patrick McManus. He's the director of Ontario Sewer and Water Main Construction, and he made it very clear that water is to be user paid and user payment. And he says this is why we're in this trouble right now. Everybody's out looking for grants to fix up their water, and but he says we got to start looking ahead and start doing our pricing, looking into the future for the future bills. And some of those things came up, initiatives came up when we were talking earlier here. And so that's my report. Is there any other council member or board committee reports, please? Go ahead, Councillor Palmer.
Thank you, Reeve. Yeah, this is back when we went to Roma. Homelessness is a constant issue every year, and it just gets worse and worse. They feel that there's about 80,000 individuals in Ontario right now, and by 2033 there could be 300,000. I'm not sure why the numbers increase. It's there's no end to the amount of money that the governments of all sizes can throw at the issue. Cyber security was interesting. We heard from a former mayor from the city of Stratford, and they were hit really hard a few years ago. And there was a whole series of lessons learned. But one of them is, for all of us, make sure you don't document your IT budget. Don't have a liner for it, because they're looking for stuff like that. And if it's a high figure, then they automatically think, scammer thinks, oh, what are they hiding? So there's a target for you. So that was kind of cool. And all programs that municipalities use just to sign up, online sign up for a rec program, it's a gateway in. And it's disturbing. Campground in Blythe, signing up there and paying online. Anytime you pay online, it's a gateway. But anyways, AMO, they had some comments that by 2035, municipalities will be spending $250 billion just on housing. And that was just to keep up on housing. And we just can't tear the poor taxpayer apart with that, plus our asset management that's going to be hitting us on a yearly basis. So AMO is really pushing for to the province for a social economic prosperity review, and there hasn't been one for 15 years. So, you know, because municipalities need help, everything's been downloaded. It's not good. That's basically it. About the water, it was interesting that Ontario, they say that Ontario and Canada specifically, in the industrialized world, we've got the cheapest water. Our bills are the cheapest, so we shouldn't feel bad when we have to raise them.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Van Hillerson, please.
Yes, thank you very much. I have a couple of meetings that I attended. The Maitland Valley Conservation Authority is working on their draft ice management plan, the watershed strategy, the conservation land strategy, and draft natural hazard infrastructure asset management plan. They're all for approval to the Ministry of Natural Resources. They are preparing for their 75th anniversary. February the 19th of this month, we will have 2 o'clock, the annual general meeting in the Roxter Hall, and you're all invited. The Huron OPP Detachment Board had a meeting last month. The transfer of the administration went from Central Huron to South Huron. Detachment Commander Jason Unen left, and Inspector Ryan Olmsted is the acting detachment commander until replacement is in place. The board is working forward with mandatory bylaws, procedures, and they are a lot the same as our municipal bylaws. The Huron OPP had a lot of more new officers in the unit, and this resulted in a reduce of crime statistics. They're more visible in the community, and for certainly in Wingham, that was very noticeable. There are teams for mental health, special teams that are out on the street and helping people. And the crime statistic is looking a little bit static, but it is overall going down because there's so much more an increase in the population, even with the tourists over the summer and over the long weekends. For Roma, I attended that one. Premier Ford, Minister of Rural Affairs Lisa Thompson, and Ag Minister Rob Flagg had very inspirational and supportive presentations. The message came with increased financial support for infrastructure, rural economic development, and agriculture. The funding will be shared for innovative homegrown approaches, enabling the communities to grow and prosper and to be viable in the long term, for business development, attraction, and retention. And this is something that was really interesting, because that is the message that we're always getting from the Huron County Economic Development too. Ontario is Canada's agricultural powerhouse, supporting 1 in 9 jobs. It generates $51 billion in annual GDP. It's bigger than tech, auto, and steel. Ontario agriculture is the most sustainable, innovative, and renewable sector in the world. Minister Flagg announced several support increases, which will have a great impact on many jobs in Ontario and driving economic growth. I also attended workshops related to asset management, agriculture, economic development, democracy in Ontario, waste management, and long-term care and health services. And that was really very reliable for our grant that we're getting and for the nursing home here in Wingham. Conservation Ontario hosted a reception to celebrate the allocation of $3.1 million over 3 years to co-develop regional scale coastal resilience plans with Maitland Valley, Niagara Peninsula, Lakehead Region Conservation Authority, and Great Lakes St. Lawrence Cities Initiative. It's Maitland Valley is about getting $1 million a year together with the other ones. So that's all very, very positive, and we're moving forward, and there's a lot of support from the province. But the main message I'll get there was like, work together with your neighbors, with your province, and with the country, and we're moving forward for that. Very interesting.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other comments? Go ahead, Councillor Wright, please.
Yes, thank you, Reeve. So I know it's on the announcements about the Wingham BA having their AGM on February 20th. Just wanted to mention that at that AGM, we'll be looking for approval to proceed with our next major project, which is proposed to be paralleling the electronic sign, but at the north end of town near Wingham Superstorage. The sign seems to be well received by our businesses and residents, but it being at the very south end of town, a lot of people who live in Wingham don't actually see it, and obviously people coming from the north don't see it before they get to our downtown either. So just if anybody, any of the businesses owners out there have any feedback on that project, we'd appreciate getting that before the next meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments by members? Seeing none. Are there any notice of motions? Seeing none. 9.1 bylaw number 05-2025, appointment of interim director of public works. May I have a mover? Deputy Reeve, Councillor Van Henderson, all in favor? Carried. Bylaw number 06-2025, interim tax levy bylaw. May I have a mover? Councillor Whitfield, Councillor Palmer, all in favor? Carried. Bylaw number 7, 2025 borrowing bylaw. May I have a mover? Counselor Van Hitterson, Counselor Wright. All in favor? Carried. Bylaw number 8, 2025 childcare and early years programs and service agreement with Huron County. May I have a mover? Deputy Reeve, Counselor McBurney. All in favor? Carried. Bylaw number 9, 2025 Fire Protection Grant Transfer Payment Agreement. May I have a mover? Counselor Palmer, Counselor McBurney, all in favor? Carried. Bylaw number 10, 2025 Startup Service Agreement with Huron County for the Blythe Daycare Expansion. May I have a mover? Counselor Van Hitterson, Deputy Reeve, all in favor? Carried. Next meeting, regular council meeting will be on February 18th, 6 o'clock, North Huron Council Chambers. Next Wingham BIA meeting is going to be their AGM, will be held on Thursday, February 20th at 6:30 at the Knights Law Lounge at the North Huron Westcast Community Complex. And the next BIA meeting, annual general meeting, will be held on Thursday, February 27th at 8 a.m., the first floor meeting room of the Blythe and District Community Center. Are there any other announcements? Seeing none. Closed session and reporting out. That the Council of the Township of North Huron hereby proceeds at 7:11 to an in-camera session closed to the public under section 239(2)(f) of the Municipal Act to discuss the following advice that is subject to solicitor-client privilege, including communications necessary for the purpose solicitor advice. And further, that the interim CAO officer and Director of Legislative Services clerk and the Human Resource Health and Safety Coordinator remain in attendance. May I have a mover? Counselor Van Hitterson, Counselor Whitfield, all in favor? Carried.